It has been too long since I played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I honestly don't know what younger, naive Jaws was thinking for not revisiting this game sooner, but now with Jedi Survivor right around the corner, I had the perfect reason to jump back into this game. Which again, as someone who loves Star Wars as a franchise, I'm honestly amazed I haven't done this before, considering this is probably the best, most up-to-date Star Wars game that is out there right now, so I would have thought I would have gone back and played the game some more. But regardless, I am here to let you know whether or not you should jump back and replay Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, or if you haven't played it before, whether or not you should jump back into it for the very first time. So without further ado, remember, if you do enjoy today's video, don't forget to leave it a big old like. If you enjoy content like this, you want more like it, be sure to check out that button that used to be red. It says subscribe. And last but not least, gotta thank my channel members. You guys help make these videos possible. If you want to join and get access to the exclusive perks that they get, be sure to check out that blue join button. Anyway, let's begin. Short disclaimer before we start. I know I'm kind of delaying the start of everything here, but I'm not going to go over any major plot points in case you are playing through this game for the first time. In fact, I'm going to go over very generally what the story is kind of about, but I'm not going to spoil anything for you. There are some minor things that have to do with gameplay that you could consider spoilers, but again, it's nothing that's going to ruin the experience for you. So that out of the way, let's get into this. Jedi Fallen Order story is nothing groundbreaking, and I know that sounds like an insult, but it's really not. From a big picture perspective, the game doesn't do anything that's going to change your perspective on Star Wars itself. It's not going to change the way you view anything major about the franchise. But that being said, it is a story with good elements that are well told. You could even say it's not even an original story. It's about somebody who's kind of lost somewhere that they can't get away from until the Force offers them a path out of there, and they go on an adventure with a pseudo family on a spaceship venturing to different planets. Sounds pretty run-of-the-mill Star Wars type of story to me. But that doesn't mean it's not good. I think the plight of Cal, I think the plight of his crew and the people that you meet along the way, I think it is pretty interesting, and I think if you enjoy Star Wars, you will enjoy this story. Don't expect to have your mind blown by anything, but I think there's some great moments for the characters in the story and some great little insights just into them as characters and into certain things that have to do with the Force, as well as certain things that are going on around the galaxy. One of the best ways this game tells its stories is not just through the main story. It's not just through Cal and the main characters. There are things going on the various planets that you're going to visit, whether it is rebels taking the fight to the Empire, or whether it's Imperial oppression that's going on a certain seemingly outpost planet that has a little bit more importance to it than it appears on the surface. There's a lot going on in the galaxy, and each place is affected in a very different way. Not only that, but one of Cal's Force abilities is the ability to sense Force echoes. So he can actually go up to objects and touch them, and through the Force, he's able to see any kind of emotions or memories that are imprinted onto these objects, which you can uncover as you go along. And it uncovers these little short stories around each of the planets you're going to explore. Some of them are tied to the main story. Some of them just kind of give you a little more backstory as to what was going on that planet. But I think they're a nice little touch that adds just a little bit more depth to what you're going through and experiencing in these different locations. Now, a lot of this sounds pretty serious, but there are some good lighthearted moments. I think Grease is a fantastic character who helps add a bit of comic relief. There's of course BD-1, who's probably the most adorable droid in Star Wars. Sorry, R2-D2. Not that you're not adorable, but I mean, just look at BD-1. Be honest here. Just look at it. But he's kind of like your pet dog or cat that just kind of chills on your shoulder and tosses you a few stims now and again, or if you need a hint while you're solving a puzzle. He is very forward with offering hints for solving puzzles. But in general, the game really nails balancing its tones out. I don't think there's any point in time where it just drags on being too serious for too long, and it's never overly humorous. It's never leaning too hard onto that sort of thing. It has a pretty nice balance and some pretty nice pacing with how it goes about things in regards to the story. Now, on top of that, there is the fantastic atmosphere of each place that you go to. Each planet is wildly distinct from one another and is going to have a vastly different feel to it, not only from a visual perspective, but also just from a general atmospheric perspective, whether it's different creatures you're going to come across, different enemies you're going to come across. And also, I got to mention the music. The music in this game is fantastic, whether it's the mystical Force theme that is playing on the main menu or the ambient music as you're exploring on different planets, how it has a little bit of a different tune in each place. The audio in this game is awesome. Also got to do a quick shout out to the band The Who. The Alien song that you hear at the beginning that sounds like a Star Wars rock song, and honestly, if you weren't told otherwise, you would think it was made specifically for this one part of the game, is actually made by a real band called The Who, and they're a Mongolian metal band, and the entire full song is fantastic. I highly recommend listening to it. I listen to it when I work out, so, you know, pro tip. It's pretty great. But generally, the audio design is fantastic in this game, not just with the music, but you also have the lightsaber sounds. This is one of the coolest details in the game. When you go in to customize your lightsaber, you of course have the different colors. Each color is going to have a distinct different ignition sound. But such a cool detail as well. If you notice the blue lightsaber, it sounds a lot like Anakin's lightsaber when he ignites it in the movies. The green one sounds like Luke's from Return of the Jedi, and so on and so forth. The different ones that we've heard in different forms of media are in this game. And I think that just goes into the awesome attention to detail that Respawn has with respect to Star Wars. They did a great job with that. And of course, when you're in combat and you're actually striking with your lightsaber, it sounds fantastic. It also looks fantastic, and this is where I want to start to get into some of the gameplay, as well as some customization with how you handle your lightsaber. Gameplay wise, Cal definitely leans a lot more into his lightsaber abilities. This is not the Force Unleashed where you have wild Force powers. He's much more of a lightsaber reliant type of Jedi, which is cool because you do get some different abilities with it. Not only do you have various combos that you'll unlock through your skill tree as you start to unlock more of your skill tree, of course, you also end up with that dual blade. So it gives you a little bit of crowd control when you have both blades ignited, and you also have the ability to handle one-on-one situations with just the single blade. It's a very cool and useful way to implement that type of mechanic while also, you know, it looks awesome, let's be honest. Mechanically, the actual lightsaber combat itself isn't anything groundbreaking once again, but it is good enough, and just the cool factor of the lightsabers, the sound design, and the ability to customize it insanely. I mean, just look at how much you can customize it. Granted, it's not 100% perfect. There could have been more bits and pieces we could have been able to choose from, but this is definitely a satisfying enough lightsaber customization setup, and it is definitely very fun to play around with, as you can of course change it up to give a completely different vibe to each little lightsaber build that you want to have. Now, all that being said, there is of course the other side of a Jedi's repertoire, that of course being their access to the Force. Now Cal, and I think this is actually a good way to have done it, Cal is not Star Killer, okay? He's not going to pull a Star Destroyer out of the sky. He's not crazy with the Force. And that shows because he has very limited Force abilities. And it makes sense from a narrative perspective because, of course, he survived Order 66. He didn't get his training completed. He's not exactly loaded up with knowledge of the Force, but he has enough of the essentials that you feel very powerful by the end compared to what you felt like in the very beginning. Each little new Force ability you get offers a new way to approach the different mini bosses that you'll encounter along the way, and it all comes together in a nice cocktail of feeling quite powerful despite not having any insane Force abilities. Again, it's not going to be like the Force Unleashed. We're not going to be able to just rip things off of starships and destroy entire levels because we're just so unbelievably overpowered, even though I would love to have Star Killer back in Star Wars. This just isn't that kind of a game. This is definitely a much more grounded, survival feeling game. Cal is just trying to get back in touch with the Force as he knew it when he went through Order 66. Now, beyond just combat and using the Force for puzzles, the other thing you're mainly going to do in this game is traverse. Because, I mean, you have maps and you're going to want to run across them to get to your various objectives. And honestly, this is one thing that I wish they could have done a little bit better with. While there are very interesting little puzzles that you can set up and do that make you think a little bit while you're doing them, there's also a lot of moments where you come across just a bunch of slide things that are very conveniently placed, or you're just climbing a very easy to climb rock path. There's never really a a groundbreaking traversal moment until there's a couple parts in the game on one of the planets where you're kind of playing this little hop around type of game. You can't stay in one place for too long, but it's never something that you're going to come across constantly. And I don't know if that's by design. It makes certain planets feel a little bit more difficult to traverse than others, but there's not as much engaging traversal as I would have liked, to be honest. I'm not asking for Assassin's Creed style parkour, but maybe just something other than crossing a bunch of zip lines or just wall running very easily from one place to another, as things like that get a little bit repetitive and aren't the most engaging thing in the world. Now, that being said, if you do get bored with a bunch of the traversal, if you get bored with some of the main story gameplay, you just want to get into some fights, there is actually a meditation training arena that you can access from any of the meditation points, where you can go in and you can set up whatever fights you want. And it's really cool. It's something that they added after the game in post-launch. It's really fun to be able to set up different boss fights and see if you can actually take on these different challenges. That's something that I do recommend if you just want to go and experience what the combat's like, or re-experience what it was like. This is a really cool way to do that. Now, how does the game perform? It did have several patches as it went along. I remember distinctly there were some issues with bugs and frame rates, and honestly, even after all those patches, I will say performance-wise, this game is better than I remember, but there's still some things that are very much still present. I still get some crazy frame drops in certain areas. There's just this one part of Bogana before you get to the vault that's on it that just has, every time I go there, it's the same just crazy frame drops. And I'm not talking, you know, oh, I go from 60 to 45 frames. I'm talking, it feels like I'm dropping down to 15 frames. It's really that bad. And it's not something that's constant, but when you're just arriving that, you just get hit hard with it and then it stabilizes. I don't know why it's like that. I don't know why they weren't able to patch it, but it's something to be on the lookout for, as it's not the only location that's like that. There are definitely places you're going to come across where there are hitches in your frame rate. There are also some bugs still with the traversal. There's a couple times I was trying to climb up out of places, and instead of vaulting himself up, Cal instead launches himself in the air, and then he may or may not catch the ledge again, and you might fall to your death for no reason. So again, there's little random things like that that are still in this game, and it can make a run on something like Jedi Grandmaster very frustrating, because one thing with games that are this difficult, as this is considered a Souls-like game, is you need to have fine precision and fine control, and I don't think this game offers you enough of that to be able to get through this in a smooth manner. There are times where your skill isn't going to matter just because the game is going to screw with you beyond your control. Because for example, like when he does jump up and fall to his death because he doesn't catch the ledge again, it's not your fault, and you do lose health upon respawning, which on Grandmaster is a much more significant chunk than it would be on, say, the normal difficulty. And because in this game the only way to get health back also respawns enemies, and you can only do it at certain points, you can see how it adds up in that difficulty scale. Overall, the aura of this game, from the music to the story beats to the characters, the customization, and just the general fun that you can have with Fallen Order, I highly recommend jumping back into it if you haven't done so in a long time. The game is very enjoyable. Don't expect it to be a 10 out of 10 game of the year type of game. It's not 100% perfect if you're someone who's going to nitpick through every detail of it, but if you love Star Wars, if you love a good challenge, if you just love Star Wars games, hopping into this game is great fun. You're going to have a blast, whether it's just customizing your lightsaber and jumping into the meditation battle arena, or whether it is going through the full main story. I think you would have a blast with this game, especially with Jedi Survivor right around the corner. It's got me very excited to jump back into this and refresh my memory as to what the story is going into the next game. So anyway, let me know down below what you think of Jedi Fallen Order. Are you replaying it? Are you just excited for Jedi Survivor, or have you even played it before? Let me know down below what you think. Let's have a conversation, and I will see you in the next video.